Hello. Hi everybody. How you doing? It's me, Leslie. Oh, that's kind of a glare over. That's kind of cool. Look at that. It's like, ooh, the top of my head kind of disappeared. Ooh, look at that. Okay. Sorry. I'm having way too much fun today. Me and Zazoo Plazz. Welcome to the Zazoo Plazz report. Mercury retrograde in Leo season. My neighbor's out. I think she's at work. So I gotta get this done. What is it? 3:30? I gotta get this done before she comes back. July 28th, 2025. Yeah, it was a strange weekend, strange energy. Apparently my new neighbor upstairs, she's a Red Sox fan. And how do I know this? Because apparently every time they have a game, I get to hear it from her upstairs TV, which is right there. Bear with me. There's a slight chance of a rant in the next 5 minutes sometime, or 30 minutes. If you want to stick around to the end, there might be a little ranting spliced throughout. And I'm not taking it, I'm not editing. I don't edit these videos, folks. This is what you get. Pure, raw Zazoo, unedited. Authenticity and audacity is what we're all about here. It's Leo season, so bear with me. So, yeah. So, I have an unusual, if you're new here, I have an unusual habits. And she is very much still tied to the matrix. So she comes and goes. I think she's in healthcare, so she's got scrubs on. She goes every now and then. She gets a day off, like she works 6 days and then she gets a day off. But apparently, whenever the Red Sox had a game, I hear, I look at the schedule. I'm like, oh, Sox are playing tonight. Then all of a sudden I hear, no. Anyway, I like the Red Sox, okay? But I'm not one of these people who, I'll cheer for them, but I don't go to games and I don't watch spectator sports, I'll check in maybe no, I don't care. I mean, if I was going to support any team, it would be the Red Sox because I went to school in Boston, But I don't want to waste my life sitting in stadiums cheering on, spending money to go, or even, no, I don't care. I do stuff like this. When my kid was playing Little League, I mean, we all went and watched his games, and my younger son, all the way from, what was that, T-ball, all the way up through high school Little League. He was in baseball because he was a spring kid, April. So, and then I didn't go to all the games. When he was little, we did, and then there was just too many damn games, like in high school. There was because the other kid had stuff going on, and so we, sometimes my husband, his dad would go, and sometimes I'd go, or whoever was around, I'd go pick him up, And, yeah, so I saw him play, but not every. There were some mothers who were there every freaking week, sitting there, get on, with the packing the drinks and bringing the whole family and sitting in. I couldn't sit in a damn chair that long. I'd have to jog around. When I did go, I'd be jogging around the field. How you doing? Hey, good one, kid. Good. That'd be me. I couldn't sit that long. Oh my God. Some of these moms, they were not in very good shape. Like they were spectator kind of, just like her. She's a spectator kind of person, sitting on her ass, having her snacks, watching her damn sports. I think she plays softball too. She plays for this team, that's a different team. Anyway, it's a different team than the one she watches on TV. Anyway, different team that I'm on. But whatever. Like I said, I don't care. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't need to know about it, okay? This is all tied together. Okay. Are you still with me? Okay. Um, I've been watching way too many of those damn YouTube tarot readers. Oh, what are the demons saying about you on social? What are the people saying about you? And, oh, they're sending demons against you and all this crap. You start looking at enough of those damn things. There's a couple of channels that are really good, and I do sometimes check those out. But the other ones, my nails aren't that long. I could do the tarot. I do the tarot, but my nails aren't that long. You have to have these dagger fingernails, and shuffle the cards. I'm like, I'm sloppy. You see these ones, you got to have like the crystals set out, or, the black witches pagan crap all over the place with your jaggedy nails. Anyway, I smell a rat. Be discerning, folks. Not all those people are spiritual, okay? They're just showy. They're cheap. Just don't go there, okay? But then I have to make mistakes. So I realize I'm watching these things, and you get suspicious. You start getting fearful. And then you realize, oh, it's not, and then you start making up scenarios in your mind from your life, fictitious things that don't really exist, to go along with the dire predictions, the things that they're saying. You start getting suspicious and fearful and no. All right? I don't need that kind of drama. My life must be pretty boring, because I can't think of anybody who's out there scheming against me. I mean, I'm boring. This is my life, folks. I'm kind to people. I think well of people. I send love, and I mind my own damn business. And if you have a problem with what I'm saying, then you don't listen to me. It's all for fun. Anyway. Okay, Zazoo, enough. It's 92 degrees outside. It's hot as, well, you know what? You're in Connecticut. No, neighbor. Oh, yeah, so my dad, one more thing. I guess my oldest son, he's got to be out of his apartment this week, down in where he's living now, in the southern part of the state. So he's moving home, and the other kid's moving out. I guess he's taking his cat with him. So my former spouse, he messages me Friday night. He says I'm all watching the band, Savage Brothers band that we have here in Connecticut. He actually went to school with one of the guys, maybe the drummer, I think. There's this they're a local band, and one of the brothers, it's brothers in a band. They do covers of songs, and they have their own music. One of the brothers who passed away was the music teacher at our kids' middle school. Our kids didn't have him because he was kind of, it was in between. They had another music teacher, and then unfortunately he passed at a pretty young age while they were slightly after, I think. It overlapped when they were there. My oldest son left, and our oldest son. But so our youngest son got the award, and his name was Tom Savage. They had a music award for kids who were, in the band. And our youngest son, who played the tuba, actually received the award in his honor in 8th grade. So it was kind of, really meaningful. And so anyway, long story short. So that band was playing down the street at a local bar. He says, I'm here, nobody's dancing. And then he said another thing, but I shouldn't say it. But we know this guy. I won't say where or what. But it's somebody that I knew before I met my husband. I knew him from just our area, the general area. He kind of looks like Lurch from the Addams Family. I always mix them up with the Munsters, but no, Lurch. I think he's from the Addams Family. So he says, Lurch isn't out there dancing. I said, wow, I'm shocked. So he sends me this video of Wednesday and Lurch dancing, you know, from the Addams Family. Anyway, we had a good laugh about that. But, you know, I think it sucks because in the old days, he and I even, he took me, I think when we were first married, he took me to a bar up near the airport here in Connecticut, in Windsor Lake, which is where, you know, he grew up. There was a bar and the Savage Brothers were playing, and it's all the Gen Xers, people our own age back in the 90s or whatever. They'd all go, and everybody would be, you know, like after work on a Friday, go for a drink, and everybody would be dancing and doing like the sprinkler and the, you know, and there's all these dances that we knew. They had a local following, you know. We'd go to these dive bars where they'd be playing. They didn't really, years later, they would play like on Thursday nights in the town where our house was. And then they made the big time, you know, they had their own CDs and things like that. But when they were first starting out, they were playing these dive bars, and we'd all go, and everybody in the area would know them, you know, and we'd all get up and dance, and because nobody dances anymore. Like, you know, here we are in Leo season, which is about performing. It's about, you know, living, shining, being, you know, on stage. So this is timely. I even got a new tops. It's pretty cool, I think. Yeah, it's kind of cool because it's got this like lacy layer, but then there's like it's like a, you know, like a fitted one underneath. So it's really cool. I thought it's kind of cool. Okay, Zazoo, get to it. Preening and propping and preening and all those PR words. Anyway, back to Genesis. I'm hungry. I'm gonna go after this. I've got leftover. I made a big pan yesterday of chicken pasta, like, you know, just like Italian casserole, you know, with red sauce and mozzarella cheese and peppers and onions. I used to have to take out the peppers and onions and have them separately because the boys didn't like them. So I would make them separately and then add them for myself, you know. And my husband didn't care for onions either, but I think he would eat the peppers. But then when I started cooking for myself again, I'm like, no, I can make it my way now because there's nobody who's not going to eat it, you know, because they're all moved out and now they eat those vegetables. But back then, so I'd compromise. I'd say, well, you know what, I'm going to make them for myself. You can eat it, the plain pasta with the chicken, and, you know, make a little salad on the side. And they would pick at things, you know. But see, that's how you do it. What was I going to say? Oh, the chicken and the pasta. Oh, so I had this. I had a half a box of penne, and I had a few, like, a little bit of that rotini curly pasta, and I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to have enough penne, so I'll throw in the rotini. Bad idea, bad. Because the twirly ones, the minute I got them in there, mixed in with the chicken and the sauce, I said, oh, this is wrong. This is not going to be good. So then I had to spend the next 5 to 10 minutes picking out the little curly pasta, because it turned out that I did have enough penne, but the other pasta just didn't go. And I said, no, this is, so being, you know, I had an OCD moment, and so I picked out all the curly pasta and threw it in the trash. And I hate to waste food, but visually it was freaking me out. Anyway, let's see. Okay, get to it, Zazoo. We know when you make mistakes. Okay. Genesis 18. So we have, okay, so this is like the whole Genesis, you know, it's the whole dystopia. God's going to wipe up the earth. And I always remember this reading. You know, it's like sometimes I say to myself, I'm going to get off social media And then I said, well, if I can just find, a couple of people to follow who, are good. If I can find 10 people to follow, I'll be good. And then it's like, well, what if I can just find 8 people? Can I stay in social media? And then it goes all the way down to, like 5 or whatever. So that's where I've stayed. I got off the, the regular profile friends stuff, because it's a waste of time. So I just have a page, and so it's work, and I have more visibility. I think it's a waste of time to go on, and then you get caught up in jealousy, then you find yourself having to look at so-and-so's European vacation, and them having dinner, and overlooking this beautiful place. I'm happy for you. It's very nice. You're there, I'm not. Okay? I acknowledge the fact that, social media is normally the way it used to be before social media, kids. I want to just say this. I'm not normally a very jealous person. I'm happy for people, and I'm, when I'm doing something, and, I want to tell people. But more often it's more like, oh, I discovered this cool idea. I'm not impressed by superficial things. If I'm going to go to some foreign country, I'm going to be on a mystery mission, I'm going to have a deeper reason to go there. And then when I'm there, I'll take advantage of the local food and enjoy the superficial things. But, there's always a deeper reason. So when I grew very, not jealous, but bored, I think, is more like, what is this doing to me? I'm liking your things and whatever, and then I leave and I go, oh, my life sucks. But, it doesn't. But that's what social media is doing to people, okay? So just to be aware that some of us in Leo season can fall prey to this, I follow people who, are funny, who show me a different side of the world, like, either astrology or comedians. And, when I follow somebody and I think that they have a greater mission, I'm not naming any names here, but lately I got very discouraged, because I thought that somebody that I really have been supporting and kind of part of a community is sort of, just in it for, to be a star, and I got really disheartened. And then, so I unfollowed, and then I kind of went back a little, because I missed the people, my peers. I missed interacting with my peers, but I'm a little skeptical, because I wonder about people's motives. And, when you have that many followers, 500,000 or whatever, I think that there's a responsibility, to come clean with people and just include them, and take care of them. Yeah, and not to just throw stuff out there and go about your merry way and let people kind of, you have to interact with people. You have to take care of them and listen to them. And, if you've got a community, you have a responsibility to those people, not like they have to tell you what to post or anything, but every now and then, it's nice for me to, acknowledge people on a one-to-one basis, not just as a group, not just, oh, this is our, I don't make, I guess it's easy to make sweeping statements about, our generation. But within that generation, it's important to notice that there are individuals and with very different life purposes and points of view. And so you can't throw the whole generation in one big, bus and drive it off the cliff. You know what I mean? So this is how this relates to the readings today. In other words, it's so easy today to condemn, oh, this generation does this and this generation does that. But within every generation, there are people who were doing good things, and people who were, who make choices that, because they've been in the dark, right? Because this is how we come onto the earth plane. We're separated from, spirit, so we make choices, right? So all of us do this. All of us have egos, right? So it's kind of, I remember this reading where, there's the angels visiting Abraham. And the Lord hears about, the sins, and he hears the outcry against two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. And he says, Abraham keeps asking God, will you spare the city if I can come up with, 50 people, 45, all the way down to 10, he ends up at 10 good people, And so that's where this ended up. I say, when I stay on social media, if there's just this many people, and I'm hanging on by a thread, and I'm like, you know what? There's still some good people out here. There are still some, and sometimes it's my own interpretation. Granted, I have, my emotions from day to day are all over the place. So the way I'm perceiving somebody may not be the way that person intended to come across. It might just be me and my current emotional glasses perceiving, say, oh, that person is it. But they might have the most pure, most fun intentions, But then I'll catch myself. So it's a good time to kind of hold your, for me to kind of, hold back, because I'm sure I'll come out of this and I'll be like, oh my God, what did I do? And my past is littered with the remains of relationships that didn't survive my scrutiny one way or the other. But those weren't relationships that were meant to last anyway. And they all have to end sometime. And I'm not too, I have Leo in my 11th. I have no planets in Leo. It's my 11th house. There's nothing in there. So it's not, I got some asteroids, but it's not a big focus. So I do have my moon in Aquarius opposite in Aquarius in the 5th house. So, there's an opposition, I guess. But, whatever. There's fire and brimstone here. So God says, okay, I'll spare the city. Now, the story, it's the one where Lot and his wife and his daughters are, the angels are escorting them out. Because, there was, the city, there was a lot of violence and greed and people, this sounds familiar, citizens distracted by violence and mindless pleasures. So God, and there's a lot of controversy about this reading, and it's not what people associate with it. It's just it's a tale, of the dangers of systemic corruption and what can happen if it's, unchecked and this and that. The wife looks back and she gets turned into a pillar of salt. She's a little salty. And he and his daughters get out. Anyway, the Psalms. Lord, on this day I called for help. You answered me. So there's talking about building up strength within me. Strength, that's Leo. The strength card, tarot card, that's Leo. No more rants for the rest of this. I went a little overboard in the rants. The Lord is exalted yet sees the lowly, right? So talks about seeing the proud from afar. Protects us against the anger of our enemies. This is, fire. Leo's fixed fire, right? And lions, pride, it's all about that. These are the images that go along with Leo, right? There's the higher Leo, There's my AC. I'm getting a little heated up here. The right hand saves me. God's will God will complete what he has done for me. In other words, we have a dharma, a purpose, so once God has started it, in other words, you come down here and you ask God for help to complete your mission, right? And he will, Spirit, Holy Spirit will help. So then let's see, Colossians 2, being here. Okay, so we're here, we came down here and we're, there's karma to resolve. But then, we have now the opportunity to break those ties and raise ourselves up to rise to our highest expression, right? So Luke 11. So there's the Our Father prayer. Most of you know it if you were raised Christian or whatever. Most people know the Our Father. It's about forgiveness, forgiving others, as we are forgiven by source, and gratitude for our daily bread. And there's that parable, the little story, kingdom come, the end of times, all that. And this is a good one too, about some person knocking on his friend's door. Just say it's a he, knocking on his friend's door to borrow some bread because a traveler has shown up at his door and it's late and he doesn't have anything to feed him. So he said if the neighbor doesn't give the bread to the person because of their friendship, they'll do it because of their persistence. In other words, so the friend is God, or source, the universe, right? So if you keep asking for things, you can't give up. Finish what God will help us complete what he's done. In other words, if your intentions are pure, right? You want to do, give the bread. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open. So that's the image for today. And it says, if the wicked give good things to their children, they're not going to give them a snake when they ask for a fish, that's Pisces, or a scorpion, Scorpio, when they ask for an egg. I know what that is. How much more will God send the Holy Spirit to those who ask? So, that is so good. So, in other words, there's persistence here. There's forgiveness. In other words, God, we need to forgive others, and then we will be forgiven. So there's reciprocity here and hospitality. And hospitality was one of the reasons, lack of hospitality was one of the reasons that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. It's because angels showed up and they weren't very nice to the angels. I'll just leave it right there. They wanted to, not good. I'm not going to get, banned on here. I don't want to say anything. Go look it up. It's not good. So in other words, you never know. You never know if angels are coming. You should be nice. Not a doormat, but I think that if we're persistent and we're forgiving and we're hospitable, you just never know when angels are going to help you out. They might be angels you're helping out. You don't know. That's a theme in my book too. I talk about that. And I was raised Catholic, so the guilt was laid on pretty strong. Anyway, my dad called me today. Yeah, I know. Dad has a couple of things to tell me. It usually means somebody died, or somebody he saw at church knew somebody who died, or something we talked about, somebody in the family, something happened. Anyway, or he wants to know the latest dirt about the boy. Not dirt, but he wants to know about the boys because they don't call Papa. I said, Dad, you can text them. You're not going to hear right away probably, but you'll eventually hear from them. So anyway, I'm not, I'm tired of being the go-between of the generations. My dad calls me, did you hear anything about the, kids? And then you hear from Papa? Like, why don't you kids just guys call each other or text each other? Leave me the hell out of it. Anyway, okay, Zazoo, that's enough. Get to the song. Going over. Anyway, so long story short, my dad's telling me family news, which was good, and then he said that one of our neighbors 2 doors down, that the mom of these kids that I grew up with, who were close to my age, had passed away. She passed away, and that was sad. And I just, the father, her husband had died, within the year, and we know the family, and they were a nice Italian family, and they were I didn't know, my dad said that they were the ones who bought the first house on the block, and so our house was the third house, and the house that my former spouse and I bought, it was also the third house on the left from a side street. You can't make this stuff. I went and recreated my childhood house, so that's interesting. So the song I said today, okay, the whole knocking on the door, I said, okay, somebody's knocking, somebody's knocking on my door, knocking on my door. There was a Paul Simon song, but then I thought, oh, somebody's knocking, could you eliminate? And so that was, October 1980, all right? I was a freshman, it was my sophomore year in high school, almost 15. So there was this urban cowboy kind of music, like country pop crossover. Somebody's Knocking by Terry Gibbs, she's only 71. She's still only 71, but she's still, she's still around. She made a lot of albums, and she's been, more of a Nashville, southern, she's from Miami, but I guess she did a lot of southern, like country, and she's visually impaired, so she had the, beautiful voice, very unusual vocal sound, they said about her. And so I'm going to post, I've got a video of her singing at the country, I think it was the Country Music Awards, because she won, that came out from her, it was debut single from her Somebody's Knockin' album, her debut, her album, I think it was her debut album, written by Jerry Gillespie and Ed Penny, who was disc jockey from Boston or something, record producer. She won the 1981 Academy of Country Music Top Female Vocalist Award and Country Music Academy New Artist. Was nominated for Grammy Country that year. She was on the country charts. She got to number 13 on the Billboard Top 100, number 3 on the Adult Contemporary. That was a great song. And I was thinking today about that time period, first couple of years, there was a lot going on in the early 80s, and those of us who were the older, the first Gen Xers, we were in high school then, some of the younger kids were just in like grammar school or, maybe elementary school, but we were in high school, going into high school at the very beginning of the 80s, and there was a lot of culture, there was a lot of stuff going on with the environment, and, a lot of things that we experienced. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But, I did remember that song. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to go have my my snack, because I'm really hungry. Pass out here. So until next week, the same place, different time, yada yada. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.